Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the 30-minute slowdown where our subject is working on your business, not in your business. That has always been a metaphor that's been used for leadership, to work on yourself, right? To be on your game and to work on it. And look at us, we're in a situation where many of us literally can only work on the business and not in the business. So I'm hoping these words I give you today will help you cope, help you frame what's really going on, and help you become a stronger leader in person. And so I wanted to start with, I have my list of topics I want to cover. Let's start with the professional athlete. Now think about this. The professional athlete works 90% of their time practicing. They practice, and then 10% of their time they're in the game, right, where they have to perform what they've practiced and learned. Now, consider the corporate athlete. The corporate athlete, like you and I, we are constantly working in the business for 90% of the time, and if we're lucky, if we choose to take the time, we can work 10% on our business, on our game, on our leadership. And so consider this your 10% time. And you may be in a position where this is actually now flipped, 90-10. Whatever it is, you have a little more time. And so I'm encouraging you now to focus on you. Take this time to focus on you. As we go through this, I want to talk about managing negative emotions. In the last week when we spoke, we talked about controlling your thoughts, right? And your negative thoughts. And our brain is wired to be negative 80% of the time. Oh, great, right? So if that's the odds, 80-20, we have to decide to look at something from a different perspective. And what I'd like to explore are the big seven, I call them, the big seven negative emotions that we encounter as humans, especially in these times of fear and uncertainty. And I'd like to go through the big seven. There are more, but these are the primary emotions that you feel as we go through this. I want to talk to you about how these emotions actually release some dopamine in your system. They give you like this charge, like it makes you feel good. And kind of like a drug, it can have an after effect or a side effect. You've seen those commercials where they advertise a drug. It's a 60-second ad, and they'll tell you the first 20 seconds what the benefit is, and then it requires 40 seconds to tell you what the side effects could be. And so all of these negative emotions certainly actually give us a charge, a power, and have terrible side effects. So let's explore these, because I'm sure you're feeling some or many of these emotions, and how do we then shut it down? Let's talk about anger and resentment. So here's the situation. We have a virus invading the world. We can choose to be angry about it, or resent it, or resent the government for how they responded, or resent local government, or resent the fact that I can't have my shop open, or resent the fact that money's not coming in the way it used to. I can spend my time doing that. They're very closely related, this idea of anger and resentment. And let me tell you of how they serve us, how they charge us with power. One, it's like self-justification. You have every right to be angry and feel resentment. Revenge, I'm going to get back at this. I'm going to get back at this enemy. You feel like you're right, kind of self-righteousness. I have a right to be angry. I have a right to resent. And you feel very clever and victorious that you're going to be against the wrongdoers. But it's false. It doesn't really mean anything, because here are the side effects. While you're in your anger and resentment, here's what's really happening. Strained relationships in your life. You have a poor reputation for not keeping it together. Emotional intelligence, or your character, is the ability to calm and see things for what they really are and make a clear-headed decision of how to respond, which, when your head is filled with anger and resentment, there is no clear thought. It's a toxic environment for kids especially. They don't know how to process that. So when they see mom or dad angry, they don't know how to process that, and it's very toxic. And it increases your risk for disease. Boy, And these times, we need our immune system to be nice and strong. And while you're focused on anger and resentment, guess what? The 10 million nerves in your nervous system, which are charging you in a negative way, are breaking down the immune system and weakening the very cells that are keeping you healthy and allowing disease in. So, we're going to move on to the next 7. Let's continue, and then we'll talk about what do you do with these. All right? Some of you perhaps are feeling overwhelmed. There's just a lot going on, right? You got the mortgage, you've got this. Perhaps you're a small business owner like myself, and you're feeling overwhelmed with what do you do with these employees who are relying on this? Will the income be affected? It will be at some point. What's going to happen? I'm feeling overwhelmed. Well, overwhelmed actually serves us as well. It makes us feel self-righteous. It makes you feel like you're really busy. So when I say to someone, man, I am overwhelmed, it's like, wow, I'm taking the world on by myself and I'm the superhero and I'm going to figure out how to solve this problem, this predicament, and rue the day. Well, you're lying to yourself. You can't do it alone. It makes you feel extremely important when you're feeling overwhelmed, and it makes you feel like you're needed, because without you, everything will be destroyed, which is not the truth. Now, let's talk about the side effects of this emotion overwhelmed. You become unproductive. You worry that you are letting others down. And you believe everything must be done now. Like it's just like this sporadic, like I got to do this, and then I got to do this, and then I got to do this. And you're just sporadic, jumping all over the place. And it creates a lot of high stress. And stress, again, breaks down the immune system. So these emotions do not serve you. They lie to you. And we have to learn how to control them as we work on our business and not in it today for this moment. Let's do the opposite of overwhelmed. Now, you could be in this situation and have a completely opposite reaction of overwhelmed, which we would call complacency. You know what? Screw it. There's nothing I can do anyway. I'm just going to sit here and pound some cake, Danica calls it the 15-pound virus thing, like we're like freshman 15, the Corona 15, like we're sitting around being complacent, eating whatever we want because screw it. And that's not healthy either. So complacency, what does it do? It gives us a moment of feeling safe. Nothing I can do about it. I'm almost like surrendering to it. And so I'm just going to sit here and do nothing. It protects us from bad feelings. Feelings like guilt or overwhelmed or worry. It gives us no need to think or to solve any problems. Complacent, screw it, whatever. It's out of my control. And it allows us to avoid the conflict that is very real. So we don't face reality. We don't face the conflict that is real that we can think about and respond to. Now, that's how it serves us, right? It serves us in those ways. We can avoid conflict now. There's no need to think. We're protected from bad feelings. We feel safe in the moment. What happens as a side effect? We disappoint others. I mean, people look at you and go, come on, if you can do something. The inability to listen. When people go, you know what, there is something we can do. Let's brainstorm this. Whatever. I can't hear a word you're saying. People stop actually caring for you, believe it or not, because you have no help. You're not even willing to be a part of the conversation when you're in the complacency frame of mind. And you get nothing accomplished, which is obvious. If you're complacent, you're just sitting doing nothing. Let's at least paint the fence, right? Let's at least do some yard work. Let's at least catch up on things that were broken. Let's at least get after what we can get after if we have less time to work and more time at home. Let's get after some of these projects that maybe we couldn't get after before. Let's get after it. All right. Guilt. Guilt is one of the big 7 that a lot of people feel for many different reasons. When we reflect on the current situation of where guilt lies in, it could certainly be perhaps your manager responsible for the lives of people. Perhaps you're a business owner. I know a lot of restaurants around, big restaurants, have employed over 100 individuals, and they have to say, we got to shut down. And so you could feel an immense guilt over that. And this is how guilt serves us. It makes us believe that we're on our way to righteousness. We must cascade ourselves through this self-punishment. And once you pay the price, you'll be set free. Once I worry enough and put myself in enough anguish, I will serve almost like this penance where I will be set free. And that's not the truth. But that's how we feel when we go through guilt. At least we're doing something. Now, what is the negative of when you're in that guilt frame of mind? Well, one, you feel alone and isolated. You desire a way to punish yourself because that's why you're going through the guilt phase. You feel a sense of shame. Like somehow this is my fault. And it's me. And shame doesn't help us get anything accomplished. And it makes you feel, when you're in guilt, like you're not worth forgiving. It makes you feel, when you're in guilt, like you're not worth forgiving. You are not worthy. So you can see certainly how that emotion does not serve us. It may serve your guilty pleasure of self-punishment. It doesn't serve anyone else around you. Finally, the big two. These are huge. Worry and anxiety go together, like peas and carrots. Worry and anxiety. Now, there are many folks who say, maybe you're called a worrywart, right? Worry about everything. And it is probably the number one of the big seven are these two. They go together. They're pretty much the same thing, worry and anxiety. And so this is really interesting when we came upon this aha moment, if you will, because I was a worrier as well until I became self-aware and realized I wasn't helping anyone by worrying. Listen to this. Worry shows you care. I'm going to say that again. Worry shows you care. That's a belief that you have. It's a belief I had. That if I'm not worrying, I just don't care. Even though in that worry, much of the time there's nothing you can do about it. Like worrying about what's happening to the economy is not going to help the economy. It's not going to help anyone. So I ask you this, can you care about the economy and not be worried? And the answer is yes. Think of a loved one. A lot of folks who have a loved one who's suffering in sickness or illness, and they're far away, and you fly in when you can, right? You take the trip when you can to be with that loved one, and the reality is you can't be with them the whole time. And so when you're not with them, especially, you worry and you feel anxious because you totally care about them. I ask again the question, can I completely care and love a person and make sure I call them and share words of encouragement and love and not feel worried? You can. You absolutely can. And we must do it. Worry and anxiety protects us from coming danger, which is false. We feel a little bit protected because at least we're doing something. And you're really doing nothing about the problem. Back to a sick family member. You're not doing anything for that family member by worrying. What you are doing for them is calling them on the phone and telling them you love them and telling them you care and doing those kinds of things. That shows me you care, not worrying. Matter of fact, here are the side effects of worry and anxiety. It makes you believe things that are not true. Like, I'm worrying, therefore I care. Those two do not jive. They're not connected. They're not connected at all. You don't need to feel guilty or worry about anything. You just need to be there when you can and do what you can. It raises our stress and affects the immune system. Matter of fact, all these negative emotions destroy our health. It's been reported that 75 to 90% of all primary care visits are stress related. Again, 75 to 90% of all primary care visits in a typical healthy society is from up here, our stress, our anxiety, the big seven, feeling angry, resentment, feeling all those things. When you're in worry and anxiety, you can't think clearly. You can't find solutions, and you have a high potential to panic. So, the big seven, they actually serve you. They bring dopamine and energy into the system. They lie to you to make you feel like you're in control, when the fact is you're out of control. If you remember last week, we talked about, I drew this little diagram. I had the arrow coming in, and there was a line, and then out. This arrow represents a stimulus, an event. I talked about like when you're getting cut off driving, right? And then this is the event. You get cut off. Boom. Without space, you react. You son of a... You react. What do we do with all these negative emotions? We provide space. The stimulus comes in, the event. Pause. What does this really mean? Is the big question. I want you guys to write that down. The big question, when you feel threatened, and you know, you feel it right in your gut, right? And that anxiety and the 10 million nerves starting to eat your nervous system, pick something, a situation, and ask yourself, what does this really mean? And define it in a positive way. What this really means is I can get some stuff done around my house. What this really means is we're going to have more family dinners together. I'm going to reconnect with my kids. What this really means is I'm going to go out and walk more than I've ever done before and get exercise that typically I've used as an excuse because I'm in my business so much I don't have time to get after my health. And so that's what this really means. That's how I'm going to define it. Because then I can become a person who responds to my environment, not reacts. You're in control, I'm in control, always, of how we feel inside. No one has control of that. As soon as you start blaming that person or this event because you can understand, because that I feel this way, that's not the truth. You can control how you feel inside. It's in perspective. It's all in perspective. So I want to remind you to pause that we're all in this together. I want to remind you that there's a heck of a lot of empathy out there. Everyone gets it. Everyone gets what's going on. It's unfortunate. It's not comfortable. And everyone gets it. We're all in this together. We're all here to support what we can support and do what we can do and avoid the worry, the anxiety, the frustration, the feelings of overwhelmed. And when you feel that way, you pause and you say, okay, what does this really mean? And how am I going to respond? Next week, we're going to give you a major dose of a gift, so to speak, and we're going to explore dignity. We're going to explore your personal dignity. And did you know that we've identified 56 positive emotions that go against all of these negative ones? There's 56. I just shared with you 7. If I revealed the entire list, we're talking around 9, 10 of them. There's 56 positive emotions that are built in all human beings, and you're driven by 5. And we're going to talk about dignity. We've identified that as your personal dignity, and it is the strength that you have within to get over hard times. It is how you overcome, and everyone does it differently. And so I'm excited to share that with you next Thursday. Again, 3 o'clock from 3 to 3:30. We're going to be exploring dignity and how you can use your unique talents to overcome and continue to win in your life. Thank you very much. Have a great day.